Hi, I'm Santo Carfora. I am a member of the Diversity Action Team in Janesville, Wisconsin. I had the privilege of presenting a workshop with Jane McCauley last Friday entitled Privilege, Power, Oppression, and Hope. And a lot of people looked at that and they were a little bit like, what is that all about? And one of the things we don't think about in our lifetime is how we all have privileges. And often another way of packaging it is sometimes there are people considered outsiders and other people who are considered insiders. Mm-hmm. And we've all been in those roles at different times. So if you take the word privilege and you put an insider has privilege and an outsider doesn't, right, you can kind of follow that as we go through our training and kind of think, wow, let's see. So outsider doesn't necessarily mean you're black or you're white or your special needs or your sexual orientation. It could be a little bit of everything in a combination at any given time. We did this workshop with the YMCA, and I had the privilege of working with Jane McCauley.
Thank you, Santo. I am Jane McCauley and I work for the YMCA. We have a long history of racial justice programming. And it goes back to the mid-1800s, actually. And so it's part of our mission to eliminate racism. That's a very tall order when we're talking about insiders and outsiders. My role there is a racial justice coordinator, and it is our purpose and privilege to be speaking and to making people aware of actions or thoughts or ideas about how people need to come together in order to make this a better world for our children.
You know, and it's so much fun to work together,
yeah,
because in the process of doing this work, one of our main objectives is to help people not only just have awareness, understanding, and sensitivity, but to help them come away with tools on how they can in fact make a difference in our community. As our demographics in the area of Rock County have changed, the demographics in the United States of America have changed. So it's really been a privilege to help people repackage their thinking. Back in the 60s with the Civil Rights Movement, and the Black Power movement, and then in the 70s with the Red Power movement, a lot of people who look like myself and Jane were kind of wondering, like, what is that all about? And then we realized it was very much about the United States of America and how we have a history that we need to be very proud of, but we also have a history that we need to make some corrections on.
Right, and I think sometimes those movements get lost in the shuffle when we're talking about civil rights. So there was, the women's movement, and sometimes that got lost as well. They all kind of blended together, and sometimes it's really hard to keep that energy flowing and moving. And so it's really up to us to keep that going and to make people understand how that might impact our life and our community. And so doing workshops with Santo is just always exhilarating, it's informative, it's opening and freeing for me to be able to talk and to perhaps give some insight to people who may not be able to look at their whiteness or their privilege or being inside or outside. So it's exciting.
You brought something up that is really kind of resonating with me. You talked about the women's movement, and when you look at privilege and power, probably the greatest privilege and power in the United States of America, and even in Western civilization, has been male privilege. And in order for that to be shared, we need to figure out a way of bringing women into the realm. And people like Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, on and on and on, who are the pioneers of women's right to vote. That's part of this privilege piece, is trying to share privilege, and not take privilege away from people, not take it away from men, not take it away from white people, not take it away from heterosexuals, but how do we share our privileges with people who are not like us, and become a more equitable and fair country. So that becomes our real focus And as we developed our workshop, Jane and I make a point to say, we're not authorities, we are facilitators. You know, we don't come here with all the answers. We come here with ways of sparking an interest, hopefully motivating, facilitating, getting a light bulb to go on. And say, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. I never realized that I had privilege because, you know, I was a poor white person and I was raised in a real bad environment. And it's not about you feeling guilty or bad or anyone even minimizing your experience as a white person, but it's realizing that as a person who might be on the inside, you have some opportunities we don't even think about.
Right. And I think one of the things that I really like about the workshops are the expressions of people who are in the workshop, the population itself, who brings their personal, very personal stories out. And I think those personal stories really touch everybody else in the room. And so you walk away with a piece of that. You can't help but take that with you and to share it with those who are around you, I think is part of the growing experience that these workshops have.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, the stories that you talk about are really the things that people, you know, you say, what will you remember about the workshop?
Right.
They remember what people shared. They remember about the person who was raised in China and never saw a white person. Or the person who was, you know, in a community in rural Wisconsin and didn't run into a person of color until they went to the university. And all of a sudden it was like culture shock. Or a person like me, who was raised in Brooklyn, New York, and who came to work in Janesville, Wisconsin 43 years ago, and I'm like, where are the variety? Where are the people that don't look like me and don't talk like me and don't act like me? And our country is becoming more and more like that. So this is just a great opportunity. You know, one of the things we like to talk about is diversity is the one true thing we have in common. Celebrate it every day. It's not a matter of like, here they come. It should be, here they come. What can we learn from each other? How can we grow in the process?
Right. And I think there were a lot of aha moments in that workshop, that particular workshop. I think that sharing the story of Native Americans and having to carry identification at all times really opened up a lot of people's eyes as to what is really happening with our first people who have been here for hundreds and thousands of years. So I think that was really, really important. The film clips that we showed, or that you showed, were really outstanding as well. But again, I think it's those personal, very private stories that people don't often share with each other in a regular conversation. And that this is a really great venue to be able to work at those things, with those things, in a safe environment. To be able to say things that you might not have been able to say in a private conversation, and to be able to work that through and come out with maybe a different way of viewing something. So it's always fun, and it's always a good
You know,
experience.
I'm recalling some of the things that were said during the workshop. When a woman of color stood up and she said, you know, it's so wonderful to be able to express myself, to speak my truth, and to not feel like I have to defend myself.
Right.
To feel like we can actually have an honest conversation, or what we call in our business a courageous conversation, and not feel like I have to convince people that I'm right and they're wrong. We can just speak our truth. We could, you know, say what's in our minds and in our hearts. And one of the things that Jane and I focused on at the beginning of the workshop are some of the principles of our Courageous Conversations book, which is basically to speak your truth, to stay engaged, not to get distracted from the conversation, and to expect non-closure, meaning we're not going to fix it in one workshop. This is part of our lifelong learning. Every time we run into someone who's different, which means every time we run into anybody, because it doesn't have to be a person of color. It could be another male for me. It could be another Italian male for me. They're different than I am. There's no two of us that are the same. And then, of course, the last piece is not only to expect non-closure, but to expect discomfort when you speak your truth. Because when you speak your truth, Sometimes it's going to ruffle somebody's feathers, and I may be uncomfortable, but at least we need to figure out a way of being diplomatic as well.
Right.
So that becomes also part of the piece. And I guess, when you look at the, what do we hope to gain from these workshops? Personally, it's a matter of, and I think Tim Weiss said it very well, it's not a matter of people feeling bad or feeling awkward. It's a matter of accepting responsibility for moving our country forward. For us, accepting responsibility for moving this community forward. Because I know when I came here 43 years ago, this was a very homogeneous community, which was proud to have 2 African-American families. And now we are becoming much more diverse, and now we have an opportunity to figure out ways of not only including people who are not like us, but to have them stay here and to have them welcomed here, which takes me into the Diversity Action Team, which is an organization that is available. If you go to dat.org, you can connect with our organization. You can become part of our organization. You can participate in our programs, such as these workshops. We have another one that will be scheduled in the fall. So look at the papers, look at JATV. Right now it's tentatively scheduled for September 13th or September 20th. We're looking at those dates on Friday. The Diversity Action Team also offers opportunities to take a study class, which would be like a 6-week class at 2 hours a week. We call that study circles. And you've been participating in an event on Wednesdays.
Oh, yes, Courageous Conversations about Race. And those have really been eye-opening for me, great growth for me as a white woman who grew up in white America. As you said, going to college was actually my first-hand experience meeting people of color, black and brown people. It was just a real revelation for me. And farther, I guess I would have to say then, furthering my university experience, hearing about things historically that I had never heard of before, people that made such an impact on our nation and were not very much talked about in our history books. They're written by white men, and so you don't often hear about the efforts of black women or black men or brown women, brown men, or how they actually formed very important progress and programs in our country. So for me, that was really a big growth area for me. And so to have this weekly group come together, there's probably 6 to 10 people per week who come together and talk about issues in our community. We have read a few books, and they were just fabulous and really deep conversations about relations between people of color and brown people, black people, white people. We're all people and our own experiences, and being able to talk about that in a safe way. So we meet every Wednesday. I would love to have more people. We meet at the YWCA starting at 4 o'clock, so if anybody wants to come, that'd be great. We also have, the YWCA is also promoting quarterly, they're called Lunch and Learns, and so what we do is we bring up a topic and have people bring their lunch. We'll see a video, have great discussions afterwards. We just had one on immigration and migrant workers, and in June we're going to have one on racism, and we're going to be actually promoting and talking about our fundraising effort, and it's called Brace for Racial Justice. It's going to be on June 22nd, and we're going to be meeting at the fairgrounds. We've had upwards of 250, 300 runners. It's an awesome event. It's a 3K, 5K. I think I made a mistake. It's a 5K. Sorry about that, 5K. So bring your tennis shoes, come on out. You can sign up on the YWCA's website if you want to join Team Respect, headed by Santo Carfora and his wife Jean.
Join our team. We'd love to have you.
Join the team. It's for serious runners and for amateur runners, and a family event, and we're going to have some really great multicultural events afterwards. There's also a breakfast.
And you could run, you can walk, or
right.
if you like, you could participate by raising donations and contributing that way if you're not going to be available that weekend. You can still be part of the team and still be part of the Race for Racial Justice.
Right.
And the money goes
The money goes to the YWCA's Racial Justice Initiative, and it's really an important initiative. We there are so many things that we do, and one of them is to help people with language barriers who are unable to maybe read documents and go through the legal system, and to help women who may also have those language barriers come into our domestic violence shelter. So all those things are important in our community, and to do the anti-racism work and to help our community grow. Cultural competency, it's all so important.
And I'm amazed that the YWCA has such a large umbrella of responsibility in teaching and working in the community. It's kind of daunting when you think about all the things the Y has. To continue and give you other opportunities, the Diversity Action Team also has, on the first Thursday of every month, starting in the fall, we have, starting in September, we have programming. We usually start out in the beginning of the year with a program commemorating 9/11, and then we move forward into October, November, and move through the year with special programming. We've had programs like information on what it's like to be Islamic. We've had programming on privilege. We've had programming on the School for the Visually Handicapped, on racism, on what's happening in our schools, Craig Parker, Beloit Memorial. In the area of human relations. We've had a program last year, actually 2 years ago, on that Jim Caldwell did. He did a documentary on the city of Beloit, and we had a great opportunity for connecting with the Beloit community. Which reminds me, we would love to have more people from all of Rock County, not just Janesville, be involved in the Diversity Action Team, as well as be involved in the YWCA.
Right.
Because it is the YWCA of Rock County.
It is, and membership is free.
Absolutely.
So, you can just call the YWCA. I think you can even apply online, and there are no membership dues.
That's a nice opportunity.
It is a great opportunity. There are so many wonderful things going on there with families and children, and so we do economic justice, racial justice, and we work with families who have been in domestic violence situation, in dangerous situations. So we do a little legal advocacy, a lot of economic advocacy, so we're just a busy organization.
So then the other piece that comes into the picture is, how does this affect my life? And then until it affects our lives, sometimes we really don't take ownership.
Right.
And so often the challenge when one of your children brings home someone who doesn't necessarily look like them, believe like them, act like them, or when one of your own children happens to share with you the fact that maybe they are from the gay community, or maybe they feel affiliated with that community, then it starts to repackage one's thinking.
Right.
And I guess our challenge is to be on the proactive side, to be on the education side, and to help give people opportunities to make a difference. So we do have a welcoming community, and we do have people that want to stay here for all the right reasons.
Right.
So one of the things that the workshop we did on Friday brought closure to, and actually one of the participants actually brought up, and it was wonderful, he summarized it so well. He talked about, we can write to our legislatures when we see injustices going on. We can actually speak out, and in our workshop packet, we have things like speak up suggestions when we hear inappropriate comments being made, when people make what they think are really cute jokes, whether they're ethnic jokes or racial jokes or blonde jokes or gay jokes. If they are going to hurt other people, they're not appropriate, and how do you in fact intervene? So we give people lots of opportunities to speak up,
Right.
and to learn how to speak up, because that's getting out of one's comfort zone is not an easy thing, and it's difficult for me.
Right, and to be the first one to speak up is really, really hard, but I think the reward then is that other people see it, and they'll probably join right along with you in speaking up, and so that's really an important tool for all of us
Yeah,
to
and
learn.
sometimes you're not the one to say a word, but you just walk away from the conversation, and
Right.
sometimes your action speaks louder than
Oh,
words.
much louder than words.
Makes a big difference.
Silence makes a difference.
So when you look at all of this and you go to a workshop or you attend one of our study circles or a YWCA event,
Mhm.
it's not over, but it's a lifelong commitment for many of us. But it's lifelong learning, and it's an opportunity of helping us figure out better ways of respecting the dignity of all people.
Mhm.
And like I say to students often, we don't have to like people to respect them, and we may not agree with them, but we can
Right.
still respect them and respect from where they're coming from.
Right, respect and dignity.
Absolutely.
Are really important pieces of living in a community together and living well.
Absolutely.
Not just living, but living well.
And if you have a business or a school organization and you would like to have the diversity action team, or possibly my business, S&J Consulting, or the YWCA
Right.
people, come and speak with your organization or your service club, don't hesitate to give us a call.
Right, thank you very much. This has been great.